March 28, 1941, just after 10 p.m. South of Cape Matapan, the Mediterranean is flat and black, a sheet of ink stretching to the horizon. On the bridge of the Italian heavy cruiser Zara, Captain Luigi Corsi squints into the night. No moon, no stars, only the faint glow of navigation lamps sliding across the water as the Regia Marina steams in disciplined formation. The air smells of oil, salt, and warm metal. Somewhere below, turbines hum steadily, reassuringly. This is familiar territory. Italian waters, Italian confidence. Behind him, an officer murmurs something about British ships. A rumor. A report passed along from reconnaissance aircraft earlier in the day. Corsi barely reacts. The British do not fight at night. Everyone knows this. For years, Italian naval doctrine has rested on that assumption. The Royal Navy, for all its tradition, prefers daylight engagements. Signals, flags, visibility, order. At night, confusion reigns and confusion favors the unprepared. The Italians, with their sleek cruisers and fast destroyers, expect dawn to decide battles. Someone jokes about British radio telescopes, radar, a word still spoken with amusement, an experimental toy, unreliable, easily fooled. Italian officers have heard the claims and dismissed them with smiles and cigarette smoke. Waves interfere, rain interferes, mountains interfere. The sea itself interferes. Real sailors trust their eyes. Out here, there is nothing to see. Far to the west, beyond the darkness, British ships are moving too, but they are not searching the horizon with binoculars. They are staring into glowing green screens, faces lit from below like men telling ghost stories. On HMS Warspite, Admiral Andrew Cunningham stands quietly near the chart table. He does not pace. He does not speak much. The Royal Navy has chased the Italian fleet all day, losing contact, regaining it, never quite closing the distance. Now, after sunset, everything changes. A radar operator calls out a contact. Then another, blips, precise, measured, range and bearing delivered in calm, clipped sentences. Italian ships, dead ahead. Cunningham allows himself a small nod. He has been waiting for this moment. For months, British commanders have trusted something most navies still distrust: electronics, invisible waves bouncing off steel hulls, a new way of seeing in the dark. On Zara, the mood remains relaxed. The Italians believe they are moving to assist a disabled sister ship, Pola, which earlier in the evening had been crippled by an aerial torpedo. A rescue operation, dangerous perhaps but necessary. Honor demands it. No one suspects a trap. You can almost feel the confidence on the bridge, the sense that the worst has already passed. The British air attack is over. Night has fallen. The sea belongs to those who know it best. But the darkness is no longer neutral. On British ships, radar operators track the Italian formation with growing clarity. Not guesses, not shadows, hard returns. Every kilometer closed with mathematical certainty. Gunnery officers quietly adjust firing solutions. Turrets begin to train, steel rotating with low mechanical groans. The British battleships do not turn on their searchlights yet. They do not need to. On Zara, lookouts strain their eyes. Nothing. The Mediterranean swallows sound at night. Engines echo strangely. Distances feel wrong. The sea plays tricks. A man might swear he sees a shape, then lose it again. Someone laughs nervously. Radar, an officer says again, dismissive. They think they can see us. Captain Corsi does not reply. He stares forward, uneasy now, though he cannot say why. Something about the silence feels heavier than before. No gunfire, no flares, no warning, just the steady approach of something unseen. At 10:58 p.m., a British searchlight snaps on. It floods Zara's bridge in blinding white brilliance. For a fraction of a second, Italian sailors freeze, stunned by the sudden transformation of night into day. Faces, range finders, gun barrels, every detail exposed. Then the British battleships open fire at point-blank range. The first salvos smash into the water just short of the Italian line, towering columns of white spray leaping into the air. The second salvos do not miss. Steel screams, the night erupts. And in that instant, every joke ever made about British radar dies. The first shells hit Zara amidships. They arrive without warning, without buildup, just a violent, concussive impact that throws men off their feet and snaps steel like dry wood. A British 15-inch shell punches through the cruiser's side, detonating deep inside. The explosion blows outward, tearing compartments apart, venting flame and pressure into the night. On the bridge, Captain Corsi is flung against the bulkhead. The lights go out instantly. Emergency lamps flicker on, bathing the shattered bridge in sickly red. Someone is screaming. Someone else is praying. Orders are shouted, then swallowed by another impact. You can almost feel the disbelief ripple through the ship. This is impossible. Battleships do not appear out of nowhere. Gunfire does not arrive with this accuracy in total darkness. But it does. Across the water, HMS Warspite, Valiant, and Bahram are firing methodically, their radar-guided guns delivering blow after blow. British fire control teams track Italian ships as calmly as if it were midday. Corrections are instant. Ranges are exact. Each salvo walks closer until steel meets steel. Italian cruisers try to respond. Guns elevate, turrets rotate. But where do you aim when you cannot see the enemy? Muzzle flashes bloom uselessly into the dark, firing at guesses, shadows, memories of where the British should be, not where they are. Italian shells vanish into blackness, splashing harmlessly far off target. On the destroyer Ophiri, a shell tears through the bow, detonating magazines in a flash that briefly illuminates the sea like lightning. The ship slows, lists, then disappears behind a curtain of smoke and flame. Nearby, Fiume suffers the same fate. British shells rake her decks, cutting down crews at their stations. Fires race along fuel lines. Ammunition cooks off in violent bursts. Her superstructure collapses inward, twisted and burning. Italian sailors fight back with courage, not cowardice. Damage control parties rush forward. Wounded men drag themselves to hoses and pumps. Officers scream orders into voice pipes that no longer connect to anything. But courage cannot defeat what you cannot see. Above it all, Admiral Angelo Iacchino, commanding the Italian fleet, remains miles away aboard Vittorio Veneto, unaware of the full scale of the catastrophe unfolding behind him. Reports are confused, fragmented. Then suddenly they stop. One by one, Italian ships go silent. On Zara, Captain Corsi realizes the truth before most of his crew. This is not a skirmish. This is execution. The British have complete control of the engagement. They are inside the Italian formation, choosing targets at will. And they are using the night itself as a weapon. The Mediterranean, once trusted, has turned hostile. As fires rage uncontrollably, Zara loses power. The engines wind down. The ship slows, then drifts helpless. Smoke pours from ruptured compartments, choking men below decks. Ammunition elevators jam. Guns fall silent. British searchlights sweep across the crippled cruiser again, lingering this time. Another salvo slams home, tearing open the forward turrets. Steel fragments scythe across the deck. Men are cut down where they stand. The battle is over, even if the dying is not. Around midnight, the sea is littered with wreckage. Burning oil spreads in shimmering pools, igniting the water itself. Survivors cling to floating debris, their shouts echoing across the waves. Some call for help. Some curse. Some say nothing at all, too shocked to speak. British ships cease fire. Orders are given to withdraw. Radar contacts fade one by one, not because the enemy has escaped, but because there is nothing left to track. On HMS Warspite, Admiral Cunningham exhales slowly. He has just witnessed the future of naval warfare announce itself in gunfire and flame. The Royal Navy has not simply defeated the Italians tonight. It has shattered a belief. The belief that technology is unreliable, that tradition outweighs innovation, that the night belongs to no one. As British ships turn away, leaving the burning hulks behind, Italian sailors begin to understand what has happened to them. Not fully, not yet, but the laughter is gone. What remains is a question that will haunt every Regia Marina officer who survives this night. How do you fight an enemy who can see you when you cannot even see the sea? And as dawn begins to creep over Cape Matapan, revealing the scale of destruction in cold, unforgiving light, another realization waits just ahead, one that will travel far beyond the Mediterranean. March 29th, 1941, just after sunrise. The Mediterranean looks deceptively calm. Golden light spills across the water near Cape Matapan, illuminating a battlefield that no longer moves. Smoke hangs low over the sea, drifting in ragged curtains. Twisted steel breaks the surface at odd angles. Lifeboats bob aimlessly, overcrowded, damaged, some half-submerged. Oil slicks stretch for miles, rainbowed and burning in places where flames still lick at the surface. Italian sailors who survived the night cling to wreckage, eyes burned red from smoke and shock. Some are wounded, some silent. All of them are changed. The cruisers Zara and Fiume are gone. Ophiri is gone. Hundreds of men lie dead in the water or trapped inside sunken hulls. This is not the aftermath of a drawn-out fleet engagement. It is the result of minutes, a brutal, decisive, technologically lopsided minutes. British destroyers return cautiously to the scene. Orders are given to rescue survivors. Sailors lean over rails, tossing ropes and nets to the men they were firing upon only hours earlier. Faces meet across the water, enemy to enemy, no words spoken. For many Italians pulled aboard, the first thing they ask is not about the battle. They ask how the British found them. On the decks of HMS Greyhound and Havoc, Italian officers are separated from enlisted men. Blankets are wrapped around shoulders. Burns are treated. Water is passed hand to hand. British sailors hear the same stunned questions again and again. How did you see us? There is no gloating in the answers, just matter-of-fact statements. Radar, we tracked you all night. We knew where you were. For some Italians, the word still feels unreal. Radar, the thing they joked about in mess halls, the thing dismissed in reports and conferences, the thing no one believed would work reliably at sea. Now it has destroyed an entire cruiser division. Back in Italy, the news arrives slowly, carefully. Losses are underreported, details are vague. Official communiques speak of unfortunate engagements and temporary setbacks. The word Matapan is not emphasized. But within the Regia Marina, the truth spreads fast. Survivors talk, signals officers whisper, staff meetings become tense. Reports from neutral observers confirm what no one wants to admit. The British fought blindfolded opponents and won with surgical precision. Italian admirals gather around charts and ask uncomfortable questions. Why were British ships able to open fire first? Why were their salvos so accurate at night? Why did every maneuver feel anticipated? The answers point to the same place. British radar sets. Integrated fire control. Night fighting doctrine practiced relentlessly, not theoretically. And beneath that, arrogance. The belief that tradition alone could substitute for adaptation. Before Matapan, Italian naval planning emphasized daylight gunnery, speed, and elegant ship design. After Matapan, confidence fractures. Night operations are restricted. Orders emphasize caution. Commanders hesitate after sunset. The sea no longer feels neutral. British commanders sense the change immediately. In the months that follow, Royal Navy ships maneuver more aggressively at night. Convoys slip through contested waters under cover of darkness. Destroyer squadrons prowl confidently, radar sweeping the blackness ahead of them like an invisible searchlight. The psychological shift is as powerful as the tactical one. Italian sailors who once welcomed nightfall now dread it. On watch, eyes scan the darkness with new suspicion. Every shadow feels closer. Every unexplained sound feels threatening. Somewhere out there unseen, British ships might be watching. And they probably are. For Admiral Cunningham, Cape Matapan becomes more than a victory. It is proof that naval warfare has crossed an invisible line. Battles are no longer decided solely by eyesight and instinct. Electronics now sit at the heart of command. A navy that refuses to see this will not merely lose battles. It will lose wars. Yet even as the lesson sinks in, not every navy learns it at the same speed. Across the world, officers still debate radar's reliability, still question its value, still trust their eyes more than oscilloscopes and cathode ray tubes. They will pay for that hesitation soon enough. Because what happened off Cape Matapan was not an anomaly. It was a warning shot fired into the future. And the next fleets to ignore it will not be laughing either. Spring and summer, 1941. The Mediterranean does not change. The sun still rises hard and bright. The water still glitters blue and calm in daylight. But for the men of the Regia Marina, something fundamental has shifted beneath the surface. Night no longer feels empty. Italian captains shorten operations after dusk. Destroyers hug friendly coastlines. Cruiser formations tighten, not for strength but for reassurance. Orders emphasize radio silence and visual signaling, yet those very practices now feel like liabilities. You cannot hide what the enemy can already see. On British bridges, the contrast is stark. Radar screens glow softly in darkened rooms. Operators speak in low voices, calling out bearings and ranges with the confidence of men reading from a map. Gunnery officers trust the numbers. Captains maneuver without hesitation. The night belongs to them now, claimed not by courage, but by preparation. The Italian Navy rushes to adapt. German advisors arrive with promises of equipment. Experimental radar sets are installed on select ships. Crews are given crash courses on night procedures. Manuals are rewritten. But adaptation takes time, and time is the one resource Italy does not have. Worse, skepticism lingers. Some senior officers still distrust the machines. They have seen them fail in exercises. They worry about maintenance, about reliability in rough seas, about depending on something they cannot personally verify with their own eyes. So doctrine splits. Some commanders push forward, embracing radar cautiously. Others cling to tradition, avoiding night action whenever possible. The result is hesitation, and in war, hesitation is fatal. British forces exploit this relentlessly. Convoys to Malta, once a deadly gamble, become survivable under radar cover. British cruisers intercept Italian units before visual contact. Destroyer flotillas conduct night torpedo attacks with increasing boldness, striking and vanishing before Italian gunners can respond. Each engagement reinforces the same lesson. The enemy is already there. The night is already compromised. You are already being watched. Italian sailors feel it most acutely. Aboard destroyers escorting convoys, men stand watch gripping rails, straining their eyes into blackness they no longer trust. Every wave crest might conceal a ship. Every distant engine noise might be closer than it sounds. They remember Matapan. They remember how fast it ended. And fear creeps in where confidence once lived. For British sailors, the emotion is different. There is pride, yes, but also an awareness that they are standing on the edge of something entirely new. Victory now belongs to those who master information faster than their enemy. It is no longer enough to outshoot or outmaneuver. You must outsee. By late 1941, this truth begins to echo far beyond the Mediterranean. Reports circulate through Allied navies. Attaches take notes. Observers connect the dots. Radar is no longer experimental. It is essential. And yet, even as lessons are learned in one theater, others will repeat the same mistakes elsewhere. In the Pacific, fleets will clash in darkness with devastating consequences. In the Atlantic, U-boats will discover that the surface is no longer safe at night. Across the world, sailors will look into the dark and realize it is no longer empty. Cape Matapan was not the largest naval battle of the war. It was not the bloodiest. It was not the most famous. But it marked the moment when laughter turned into fear and fear into understanding. A moment when technology silently rewrote the rules of the sea. And once those rules changed, there was no going back. Long after the wreckage of Cape Matapan slips beneath the waves, the lesson refuses to sink with it. In naval academies, officers will later mark the battle on maps with neat red pencils, dates, ship names, tonnage lost. But for the men who were there, the memory is not tidy. It is sensory. The sudden light, the impossible accuracy, the moment the night itself seemed to turn hostile. For the Regia Marina, Matapan becomes a quiet scar. Italian warships continue to sail. Crews continue to train. Guns are cleaned. Signals are practiced. But something essential has been shaken, the belief that experience and tradition alone are enough. From now on, every night operation carries an unspoken doubt. Are we being watched? For the Royal Navy, the battle hardens a new instinct. Trust the instruments, train relentlessly, fight the night as confidently as the day. Radar operators, once peripheral specialists, become central to command. Their voices shape decisions. Their screens shape outcomes. This shift spreads. By 1942, radar-guided night fighting defines naval combat across multiple theaters. At Guadalcanal in the Arctic and the Atlantic, fleets collide in darkness with lethal precision. Those who adapt survive. Those who hesitate vanish. Cape Matapan fades from headlines, overshadowed by carrier battles and amphibious landings. But its importance grows quietly with time. It was one of the first moments when a modern navy defeated another not by bravery alone, but by information dominance. Seeing first, shooting first, deciding first. That is the new hierarchy of war. If you could stand on the bridge of Zara again just before the searchlights snap on, you might still hear the laughter, casual, confident, certain that the enemy is blind. And then in an instant, that certainty collapses. Because the most dangerous enemy is not the one you can see. It is the one already watching you in the dark. Radar goes to the Pacific, where the night killed faster than daylight. Section 1. Iron Sound, where ships died at night. November 13, 1942, just before 1:30 a.m. Ironbottom Sound, off Guadalcanal. The rain comes down warm and heavy, blurring the horizon into a wall of black. Low clouds choke the sky. There is no moon, no starlight, just darkness pressed tight against steel hulls. On the bridge of USS Helena, sailors whisper instead of speak. The sea is calm, but nothing about this night feels calm. Somewhere ahead, Japanese warships are moving south, fast and silent, trained for exactly this kind of fight. Night fighting is their specialty. For months, the Imperial Japanese Navy has ruled the darkness. Their lookouts are legendary, their optics unmatched. Their torpedoes, the Type 93 Long Lance, can tear a cruiser in half before the target ever sees a flash. American sailors know the stories. They know what happens in these waters after sunset. But tonight, something is different. Inside Helena, below the bridge, a radar operator stares into a glowing scope. Green light washes over his face as contacts begin to appear, sharp, unmistakable shapes cutting through the rain. Multiple ships. Vast. Closing. He swallows. Contact bearing 095. Range 18,000 yards. The words travel upward, calm and precise, but they carry weight. This is not a guess, not a shadow. This is certainty. On the bridge, Captain Gilbert Hoover leans forward. He doesn't ask if the contact is real. He asks how many. Across the formation, other American ships receive the same information. Bearings align, courses adjust. Gunnery officers quietly calculate solutions. The Japanese do not know they have been seen. Aboard the battleship Hiei, Admiral Hiroki Abe stands confident. His ships are moving to bombard Henderson Field, to crush the American airstrip before dawn. The weather favors him. Visibility is terrible, exactly the conditions Japanese doctrine was built for. He expects confusion. He does not expect radar. At 1:48 a.m., USS Helena sends a message across the task force. Interrogatory, are you ready to open fire? The reply comes back seconds later. Roger. For a heartbeat, the night holds its breath. Then American guns erupt. Shells streak invisibly through the rain, guided not by eyesight, but by numbers and electrons. The first salvos crash into Japanese destroyers before their crews even realize they've been detected. On Hiei, alarms blare. Lookouts shout conflicting bearings. Searchlights snap on too late, stabbing uselessly into the rain. The Japanese have mastered the night. But tonight, the night has changed sides. The first American shells slam into the Japanese formation with shocking precision. On the destroyer Akatsuki, a salvo lands squarely on the bridge. Steel fragments tear through command spaces, killing officers before orders can be shouted. Fires erupt instantly, fueled by paint, fuel lines, and ammunition stacked for the bombardment of Henderson Field. For a few seconds, confusion reigns. Japanese lookouts strain into the rain trying to spot muzzle flashes, but the American ships are firing without revealing themselves. No searchlights, no flares, just sudden, devastating impacts arriving out of nowhere. On the bridge of Hiei, Admiral Abe feels the deck shudder beneath his feet. A shell crashes through the superstructure, severing communications. Another smashes into the steering compartment. The battleship's rudder jams hard to port. Hiei begins to turn in a slow, helpless circle. This is not how night battles are supposed to unfold. Japanese doctrine demands swift, coordinated torpedo attacks launched under cover of darkness. But that doctrine assumes surprise. It assumes the enemy is blind. Tonight, the Americans are not blind. Radar contacts shift constantly as ships maneuver at close range. On USS Helena, operators struggle to keep tracks separated as echoes overlap in the tight waters of Ironbottom Sound. Orders come fast now. Course changes, speed adjustments, fire control updates shouted down voice tubes. American gunners fire again and again, guided by invisible hands. Japanese destroyers launch torpedoes anyway, white wakes slicing across the black water. One finds its mark. USS Barton shudders, then explodes in a blinding flash, vanishing almost instantly. The sea claims her crew in seconds. The victory is not clean. It never is. USS Atlanta is struck by both Japanese fire and, tragically, American shells in the chaos. Admiral Norman Scott is killed on the bridge, cut down in the confusion of overlapping radar plots and converging formations. Radar can see, but it cannot think. Not yet. At point-blank range, ships appear suddenly out of rain squalls and smoke banks. American and Japanese vessels pass within hundreds of yards of each other, crews staring across decks lit by gunfire, faces frozen in shock. The night is alive now, roaring with sound. Hiei, crippled and burning, becomes a beacon. American cruisers and destroyers hammer her repeatedly, shells punching through armor not designed to face sustained close-range fire. Fires spread uncontrollably. The battleship's speed drops. Her escorts scatter, desperately trying to screen her from further damage. By 3 a.m., the battle breaks apart into fragments, duels, chases, desperate retreats. The rain eases, but smoke thickens. Radar contacts fade and reappear unpredictably as damaged ships limp away. When dawn finally comes, he still floats barely. Aircraft from Henderson Field arrive like executioners. Bombs and torpedoes strike again and again until the great battleship rolls and sinks, taking hundreds of sailors with her. The Japanese have lost one of their most powerful ships not in daylight, not in a decisive fleet action, but because the night betrayed them. For American sailors, the lesson is brutal but clear. Radar has opened the door, but chaos still waits on the other side. And in the dark waters around Guadalcanal, the war will demand even more blood before anyone truly masters it. The Americans win the night. And still they bleed for it. When the smoke clears over Ironbottom Sound, the cost is impossible to ignore. USS Barton is gone. USS Atlanta is sinking. USS Juneau, damaged and limping away, will be torpedoed hours later, taking the 5 Sullivan brothers with her. Victory has not come cleanly. It never does at the beginning of a revolution. In after-action reports, American officers wrestle with an uncomfortable truth. Radar worked. It gave them first contact, first shots, first advantage, but it did not prevent confusion. It did not prevent friendly fire. It did not impose order on chaos. Technology had opened the door. Doctrine had not yet caught up. Radar operators describe scopes flooded with returns at close range, ships crossing, overlapping, merging into unreadable blurs. Gunnery officers admit they fired on bearings without full visual confirmation. Captains confess that in the darkness, with shells splashing everywhere, instinct sometimes overruled information. The night can still kill you, even when you can see. The U.S. Navy adapts the only way it knows how, relentlessly. Procedures are rewritten. Communications are standardized. Radar plots are centralized and filtered instead of shouted from compartment to compartment. Ships practice night engagements again and again, learning how to fight as a system rather than as individuals reacting to flashes in the dark. Radar becomes command, not just detection. In the months that follow, new sets arrive with clearer displays and better resolution. Fire control radar is integrated directly into guns. Identification protocols are tightened to prevent fratricide. Destroyer captains are drilled to trust the screen even when their eyes disagree. Slowly, painfully, the chaos begins to shrink. The Japanese, meanwhile, face a harsher problem. Their night-fighting doctrine is still deadly, but it is rooted in eyesight, optics, and surprise. Radar sets begin to appear on some ships, but they are unreliable, poorly integrated, and often distrusted by commanders raised on visual mastery. More importantly, Japanese doctrine does not fully change. Night attacks are still planned around stealth, torpedoes, and perfect coordination, but stealth is losing its meaning. Surprise is becoming conditional, and coordination collapses the moment the enemy can see you forming up. Each subsequent night battle around Guadalcanal reinforces the trend. At Tassafaronga, Japanese destroyers inflict heavy damage, but even there, radar warning allows American ships to avoid total annihilation. By 1943, the balance shifts decisively. Radar-guided American destroyers begin ambushing Japanese forces instead, flipping the script entirely. The night no longer belongs to tradition. It belongs to integration. To the sailor staring at a glowing screen. To the officer who trusts him. To the fleet that learns faster than it bleeds. By the end of the Guadalcanal campaign, Ironbottom Sound has earned its name. More than 50 ships lie wrecked beneath its waters, and buried among them is an old belief that darkness protects those who know it best. Darkness no longer protects anyone. It only favors those who can see through it. And as the Pacific War grinds on, that lesson will spread to every ocean, every convoy route, every submarine commander who once believed night was safety. Because the sea is changing, and it is changing faster than some navies can survive. And